It is 12 noon. Welcome back in. Hour number 3 of Three Man Front. So much we have been involved with today, including the Charles Bediako case, new offensive line coach coming to the University of Alabama. So much to get into with our next guest. Alex Scarborough joins us from Bama 247. Alex, Happy New Year. Thanks for being on. And, man, what a great time. That beat is never a dull moment in Tuscaloosa, especially now needing a law degree to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I joked with somebody, this is the time of year I'd normally be coming up for air, but I mean, we're still swimming. There's a late coaching change. There's, basketball coming into things with one of the most interesting press conferences we've had in years. Talking about late last week, going through the Bediako thing with NATO. It's never ending, but keeps us busy, which isn't a bad thing when we look back a few months from now, and hopefully we have a little bit of a quiet spring and summer.
All right, so let's go back to last night. You broke the story last evening with a couple other folks there at CBS in regards to the NCAA now asking for a recusal. And if I understand this correctly, so the NCAA is basically asking directly to Judge Roberts to recuse himself, or are they asking the court in general? Like, how does that work, if you know exactly what I'm asking?
Yes. So I don't have a law degree on this, so I'm not 100% clear, but you can basically, my understanding is you basically make a resolution or some sort of like, hey, this is what we think you should do, but ultimately it's going to be the judge's decision on whether or not he feels it's adequate to recuse himself.
Okay.
Whether procedurally that has to happen first for him to even consider doing it, I don't know. But it is one of those things, like, we've seen this. It's not just here. Like, it's the whole, Trinidad Chambliss going in front of a judge in Oxford. Like, the optics of these things and it happening on a local level and all these rulings getting shot down, it just sort of amplifies it, like, hey, what are we doing here? Especially when you go on the, Crimson Tide Foundation website and you see the judge ruling for Bediako's TRO is a six-figure donor. It doesn't give the optics of a whole lot of trust in it, whether or not the guy is impartial or not. We don't even know. The optics of it just don't look right.
What is the likelihood? I'm like Pat, just kind of learning as we go, but what is the likelihood in a circumstance or circumstances surrounding maybe a judge or where a hearing is being had that something like this gets moved? Does that happen a whole lot?
I'm guessing probably not a whole lot. The one recent example we have is Jeremy Pruitt's case up in DeKalb County, and the NCAA was wanting to move that case, and they argued successfully that it needed to stay there. Again, it's where the case lands, how the judge feels about the argument. How some cases how stubborn that judge wants to be. Who knows? It's so interesting. We've gotten to this place. We're covering sports meetings, covering what happens in the courtroom. And the fact that the NCAA, like, we can whine and say, oh, the NCAA needs to do this and that and this and that. Ultimately, it's these schools and these players and these coaches going around the NCAA, finding these loopholes and taking advantage of them.
Alex Scarborough joins us from Bama 247 here on Three Man Front. So the Bediako hearing was supposed to be today, but the NCAA attorneys could not make it down here for that hearing. And then, of course, last night they filed the motion in Tuscaloosa County Court asking for the recusal. This might be a loaded question, Alex, but any new time frame in regards to when this might be seen in a court, maybe not in Tuscaloosa or anywhere else? What is the next stage, your opinion, on the calendar?
I'm not aware of anything that's come up. My colleague Mike Rodak has done a great job following all of this. They're just waiting to get. My understanding is they have to schedule the hearing. So this ruling basically gave them an extra 10 days. But it's
okay.
Which comes first? Can they schedule a hearing first, or do they get to the end of the 10 days when the TRO would technically expire? Would be my understanding of it. So I think they just need to figure out where they can get it on the docket and have those hearings, I assume, in a row, which would first be, the judge making a decision, do I need to stay on this case or hand it off to somebody else locally, and then just judging the matter at hand, because ultimately the interesting thing with the TRO is people need to understand it's temporary. It's just saying, hey, you have cause to be heard by this court, and in the meantime, we don't think that something should be taken away from you. This fuller ruling to me, is much more impactful because it's going to give us, given that there will be a ruling there, the chances of going back and having something happen before the end of the season would seem pretty minimal. So whether it's this week, whether it's next week, we're going to get a lot more clarity on this situation really soon.
Alex, just given Alabama going through this, the headlines that Nate Oates, Alabama knew that it was going to get all of that attention, I have to think that while talking with folks in whether it's compliance, rules, legally, attorneys, Alabama feels really good about Charles Bediako's chances of running out the rest of the season and playing out the rest of the season. What is that likelihood in your eyes as it stands right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but I understand why they feel strongly about it because, let's face it, the NCAA hasn't won a lot of cases recently.
True.
And if, while I can disagree with going down this road, I also see that there's some merit to it and some double standards that Nate brought up with in terms of European professional players who compete in the Euro League and come over and play in college. I think there is some gray area to that because there is no NCAA overseas. There's no path for them like they have here. But ultimately that is a little bit of a double standard. And there are these players who have been drafted or have had all these other circumstances who have been given the right to play by the NCAA. So where them basically asking, okay, where's the line? Is the line arbitrary that it says G League, even though the G League, you could argue, is not as a product or paying in terms of what these athletes receive? I think there's some stuff that Alabama feels pretty strongly that they can sort of attack and win on principle with these in front of a judge. Ultimately, though, I think the NCAA is going to go in there and say, we understand what you're saying, but this guy signed 2 NBA contracts. Whether he played a minute in the NBA or not, it doesn't matter. So there are parts of this case that feel pretty black and white and parts that feel like they're in the gray area, and I think Alabama feels strongly enough in those that they can figure out a way to win. And ultimately, you can have a win that just gets you to the next point in this line, and if that's far enough down the line, you've gotten through the season and it doesn't matter, and then you can figure out the rest later. That's what sort of my first read on it was. You don't have to win the war as much as you just win this battle. And if you win this battle, the season's over, and nobody's taking. You might adjust some wins or something down the road. I don't know if that would actually happen, but you've played those games and you had Bediako for however long you had them, and that was that.
Alex Scarborough from Batman 247 joins us here on 3 Minutes Front. Let's pivot now to football, as there is no off days when it comes now to the transfer portal and the offseason, especially for Alabama. Multiple reports said late yesterday afternoon and last evening that Alabama is moving closer to hire former NFL and college assistant Adrian Clem. What can you tell us about Adrian Clem and why that's a fit? Where's the relationships in regards to DeBoer and Clem?
Yeah, there's actually a relationship that goes back with Alabama's general manager, Courtney Morgan. I believe it goes all the way back to UCLA, and Clem actually had a hand in him getting into the college ranks when he was in the more of the professional sector before that. So there's a long-standing relationship there. And look, Clem's a name that's been around for a while. He's been in college. You talk about Oregon, UCLA, SMU. He's also been in the NFL as well with the Patriots and the Steelers. So he's a guy who's been around the block for a while. So on paper, this looks like a really good hire. And quite frankly, just to take a step back, a move they had to make in terms of, look, the offensive line just underperformed under Cap the last 2 years, but especially this past season. And to run it back for another season, I think would have been a mistake because, not only did you underperform in terms of protecting Ty Simpson, but a historically ineffective running game on top of that. So you had to shake something up. You were already going to do that with the roster, so why not do that with the coaching staff as well? And, DeBoer doesn't have an extensive coaching tree, but he was able to go out, get somebody with a little bit of familiarity and a whole lot of experience that they can sell, not just, hey, I've coached in college before, I know how to recruit, all those things, but I've coached pros before, and theoretically I can go into a living room and say I'm going to help you get there as well. So, but, man, it's a lot for Alabama. They are essentially starting from scratch on that offensive line with basically Michael Carroll back and nobody else. So the spring is going to be very interesting to see how all those pieces sort of come together for the first time in a big way.
Who, Alex, is the biggest impact transfer in your mind as it stands right now?
No, that's really interesting because there are probably 5 or 6 guys you look at and say they have the potential to be that. I think one of the early ones that happened was Caleb Woodson, the inside linebacker out of Virginia Tech. A guy really athletic, got a lot of experience, and at a position inside linebacker where Alabama's lost its top 3 guys with Deontay Lawson, Justin Jefferson, and Nikai Hill-Green as well. So there's a really big opportunity for him to come in and make an impact. Rayson Delgatti, the center, who was at Cal Poly, on paper looks like a really good fit because he's played a ton of snaps. It was really effective, but you just wonder how it translates to the next level when you're talking about going from FCS all the way to the SEC. And then you got a bunch of other guys who are really interesting on the offensive line, like an Ethan Fields, a Nick Brooks, a Ty Haywood, but those guys haven't really played extensive minutes in college football. They've been role players, but can you get more out of them? Or they've been guys who are younger side, and can you get them developed? Terrence Green is probably another, the big defensive tackle from Oregon. Can he slide in to be a starter? It's a more class in my mind that's built on depth and what can you develop those guys into in the short and long term, as it is, hey, let's just go out and get a home run like a Cam Coleman type guy who you just plug and play. I don't think there are a ton of those guys in this class.
Alex, was there one guy that Alabama, at least privately, they felt, man, we really need this guy, whether it was Hollywood Smothers or someone else, that they felt like, okay, we got him on the hook. This guy is going to be impactful out of the transfer portal, and for whatever reason, they moved on elsewhere. Was there anybody else besides Hollywood that would fit that criteria?
I think there was a lot of interest in Jacarius Peak, the offensive tackle out of NC State. I think there was some mutual interest, and it just never got to the point that they could get him on campus and try to close that deal. That's the hardest part about the transfer portal process, is trying to get in on a guy quickly and move quickly enough that you can close it out. You get him try to get him on campus first and get the deal signed, or B, you just stay in touch and hope for the best. So that was one that I think if they had their druthers, they probably would have tried to work out. But the Hollywood Smothers one is still the one that I think, while this staff can look at what they have coming back, you add E.J. Crowell into that mix, the 5-star freshman, you can kind of tell yourself, hey, we can get better. We can develop these guys. But I think if they had been able to bring in a guy like Hollywood who could be that bridge, not just in terms of the experience he had at NC State, but just his talent level. He was a really explosive back. He had, I believe, 9 rushes of 20 or more yards last season. All of Alabama's running backs had 8. So this guy was a very productive runner, a guy who was explosive, could catch the ball out of the backfield. Now you kind of a guy who you thought could be your workhorse is now out the building. He's at Texas. So how do you respond to that? I think is going to be really interesting. There's good prospects. Again, Daniel Hill, E.J. Crowell, A.K. Deere in year 2. But I think he was one that they really wanted to get, and obviously they wouldn't have taken his commitment if they didn't think it was one worth taking. But he didn't sign on the dotted line. He got to Austin, and I don't know how much bigger that paycheck got, but it got a little big enough to say, you know what, sorry, Alabama, I'm going to Texas.
Yeah, and hats off for Texas because they've got 2 of the best running backs in this transfer portal cycle, both in the backfield. Don't know how they're going to, kind of average out the carries between those 2 guys, but I guess money is going to take care of that. Final question, in regards to the transfer portal, I just asked you about who they almost got and they didn't get. But the ones on the current roster, was there anybody in particular that maybe you heard rumblings leading up to the transfer portal opening that this guy might test the waters and go elsewhere, but in the long run they ended up staying in Tuscaloosa? Was there anybody in particular that fit that bill?
Yeah, let me preface it by saying that almost every guy there is some amount of intrigue about, almost across the board. Right. Because people, if there's a player of the caliber to go to Alabama or contribute to Alabama, other teams are going to be interested. With that said, the name that kept coming up, and it was much about who would be interested in him and what they could offer, as what he showed was Yanze Pierre. He was a guy who we all saw, when Quay Rousseau went down early or mid part of last season. I can't remember exactly when it was now. He came on like a wrecking ball. And for a team that did not have a lot of really quality edge rushers. He became that. And almost as soon as, even before the portal happened, it was like, hey, do you think Alabama's going to be able to hold him? Because, you're going to have to pay that guy more money. And then the portal opens up and you start hearing these schools that have expressed some form of interest, including a bunch of SEC schools that would have liked to have paid him a bunch of money to come over. Ultimately, they get that deal worked out. Everybody feels good about it, but he was one. And there are a bunch of them. It's just kind of the way this goes. When everybody's living on a one-year deal, you're a free agent every single offseason, and there are going to be schools that are going to come calling, especially with the way Alabama rotated a bunch of its players. They're going to naturally be guys who are not quite starters who think they should be starters somewhere else. But luckily for Alabama, they bring back Pierre, and he's probably one of the bigger pieces on this team, not to mention guys who are kind of borderline NFL picks, like a Bray Hubbard, who they were able to get back. So the retention side of it, I thought Alabama did pretty well overall.
That is Alex Scarborough. Excellent job. Covers Alabama for Bama 247. You can follow his work there, as he's also getting his law degree from Birmingham School of Law at night, trying to figure out everything. So that's really good, Alex.
Yeah, I'm gonna add it to my resume and maybe get a little bump. I don't need to go in the transfer portal. I'm loyal to 247 guys.
I could just see him and Mike Rodak having these law debates in the Bama 247 office. Just constantly.
We have lots of debates, lots and lots of debates.
Alex, thank you so much for your time and trying to make heads or tails out of what is going on with Charles Bediako and everything else. But always a pleasure. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. That's Alex Scarborough. Joined us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Hey, excited to tell you about our friends at Crafts on 280. Actually, the show's going to be there in conjunction with the Stallions next Friday, but you can get into Crafts today. One of their 3 locations. The newest is their location on 280. It's the old Wendy's location there in Mountain Brook, next door to the Hampton Inn. If you haven't tried it, highly recommend that you do. It's got a beautiful store, dine-in, and it includes Kraft's first drive-thru. The menu has something for everyone, including their famous chicken tenders, wings, sandwiches, wraps, bowls, and salads. They also have a delicious burger, all kinds of stick-to-your-rib sides, all made from scratch. Check it out. Crafts right there on 280. It's 2727 Highway 280. They also have their other locations. They're on Church Street in Crestline Village and on 7th Avenue South near UAB. Get into Crafts this afternoon or tonight, lunch or dinner. Crafts, always tell them Landrum from Jock sent you.
Coming up next on Three-Man Front, we'll give you the very latest on what's going on, all these legal wranglings around college sports, including Darian Mensah, Trinidad Chambliss, Charles Bediako, all that straight ahead on Three-Man Front. It's 12:22. Welcome back. We're live at Social Taco. And one thing's for sure, we always brag about the listeners of Jocks and the great fans of Three Man Front. I mean, it was 14 degrees this morning, and we got a jam-packed crowd up here on the Taco
Randy
Terrace.
here for the first time.
Yeah, good to see Randy. Welcome to the program. Thank you, Randy. Our regulars, Randy, first-time visit. Great to see him. So it's fantastic. Michael from Trustful got out of his hole in his cave to come out and see
Out
everybody.
of his hole.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get everyone up to date. If you're just now tuning in, a lot of legal stuff going on. Charles Bediaco is supposed to have a hearing today to try to potentially grant a permanent restraining order against the NCAA where he could play the whole season. The NCAA said yesterday, hey, can't show up. Bad weather in the vicinity, can't get our lawyer down there, so we need to postpone the hearing. So what happened is Judge Roberts, Jim Roberts, who is a graduate, I understand, of the Cumberland Law School, not of the University of Alabama Law School. He did give money to the University of Alabama as a booster, but he graduated from the Cumberland Law School.
Did he go undergrad at Alabama?
I don't have that information. But
Where did he go to grade school?
I do not know. Anywho, he was going to extend the TRO for Charles Bediaco another 10 days. And then the NCAA filed a motion last night in the Tuscaloosa County Court asking for a recusal of Judge Jim Roberts, citing Reddit posts. That's right, folks, Reddit posts questioning Roberts' impartiality and attaching news articles about Roberts' donations to the university. So we are waiting now when the NCAA will get an answer on the recusal. Judge Roberts could say, I'm not recusing myself, let's move on. Or when the NCAA can get their attorneys down to actually get in a courtroom. There's that.
Undergrad, South Florida.
Okay, there you go. He's a Bull. Auburn South.
Yes.
All right, Duke and quarterback Darian Mensah, they have reached a settlement. They have thrown everything out in court. So he is good to go. He is leaving. I understand that there was not any type of Miami involvement in the settlement, so Miami didn't do a buyout to buy out the $4 million that he's supposed to get as the quarterback for Duke. Point of reference, Duke is at Miami on November 14th. Also, Trinidad Chambliss' attorneys, they continue to communicate with the NCAA. The NCAA waiver process is ongoing. The NCAA committee charged with reviewing eligibility appeals met twice last week. They did not reach a resolution on Chambliss' waiver appeal. They are now requesting more information from Ferris State, the quarterback's former school, before they make a ruling. Also, an interesting note that Landrum and I were just going over a few minutes ago off the air. If you did not see this last night, this is going to absolutely make your jaw drop. Rutgers University, NJ Advanced Media, that's basically the equivalent of AL.com. It's owned by the same company, but they obviously do news and sports in the New Jersey area. During an Open Public Records Act request, they wanted to take a look at Rutgers' financials when it comes to their athletics program. And in this financial report, it shows that Rutgers University topped a $70 million deficit for the third time in 5 years in 2024-25 after the state university spent a record $194 million, documents show. Now, this shortfall, according to the newspaper, was a $47.2 million shortfall. So when you add the $7 million subsidized from the school's general budget, so in other words, the money that is supposed to go to the history department, they funneled $7 million off of that department and others in the school to go to the athletic department. Then $8 million that the state of New Jersey gave to the university to pay for whatever, they siphoned that off to athletics. And then on top of that, if you're a student at the state university in the state of New Jersey, they took $15.8 million off of your student fees. $15.8 million, $8 million from the state, another $7 million subsidized from the school's general budget, comes to a total of $78 million in deficit for the athletic department at New Jersey at Rutgers.
So let me get this right. If I understand what you just laid out, Rutgers has been taking pails from all the departments.
Correct.
And paling out water for the athletic department.
Correct. That is still a deficit.
And now it's all coming to roost.
It is. Now here's the jaw-dropping stat that is going to make you go, why are they still operating an athletic department? This is the one that will make you go, this is insane. They joined the Big Ten in 2014. Since that point that they joined the illustrious Big Ten Conference, Rutgers has operated, you ready for this, folks? A $500 million deficit, $516.9 million that their athletic department has been at a deficit.
Is that double what Cal's is?
Rutgers' expenditures have increased nearly 175% since joining the Big Ten Conference.
So to keep up with the Joneses in the illustrious Big Ten, you're up to debt, you're up to your eyeballs in debt, and you're going paycheck to paycheck just to cover the expenses of living that prestigious life in the Big Ten.
Every single year that they have an athletic department based on the current numbers, they are spending $46.1 million a year in coaching salaries across the board in their athletics department. $31 million in support staff and administrative salaries, $23 million in scholarships. So you're spending double paying your coaches than you are your actual talent in a revenue-sharing model. They have a $14.4 million in facilities debt, $13.5 million in team travel they spent this last year, $8.4 million in student-athlete meals alone. $500 million they have been running at a deficit, not what they spent, a deficit since they joined the Big Ten Conference.
What would their highlight? I can think back to Rutgers. I can think women's basketball. There was scandal there, but also a pretty good women's basketball program. Greg Schiano, the first time around when he was at Rutgers coaching football. But I'm just trying to remember the highlight of the last 11 years of Rutgers being in the Big Ten. I can't think of one.
Me neither.
I mean,
$500 million
and I know we pay more attention here in the SEC, but even if we cross it over to women's sports, I could take every single institution from the SEC and give you a highlight from the past 10 years.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
Cool.
But they want to be in the – and think about all the deficit that they have. When you look at the money that they make from the Big Ten, they got $61 million from the Big Ten for its media rights deal.
Right.
And then they got another $10.7 million from the conference as its share of the league's football bowl revenue fund. So that's $72 million that you got from the Big Ten Conference, but you're still $500 million in deficit because you're a member of that so-called conference.
The equivalent of that you're getting a tax return and then your washing machine breaks.
Yeah.
Money's already spent.
Yeah. So,
man,
mind-boggling stuff there on the East Coast. When we come back, we'll talk to the bracketeer, Rocco Miller, his first visit of 2026. We'll get his feelings on the SEC. How many teams does he have penciled in on his bracket? That's all straight ahead on Jocks. It is 12:36. Welcome back. We're live at Social Talk on this very cold January day. Appreciate everybody coming out in the elements, enjoying some wonderful tacos here at Social Taco. Point of reference, wrapping up that Rutgers story we were just telling you about, that they spent $194 million on their athletics department. That is in comparison. Alabama spent $262 last year, so about $70 million less than Alabama did. But I can tell you that Alabama is not running at a $500 million deficit over the last 10 years as a member of the Southeastern Conference.
Are you telling me that right now, if I'm a member of the Rutgers football team, it's a bad idea to go in the head coach's office and say, hey, I want to renegotiate my deal?
Yeah, probably so.
I'd like some more.
Yeah, probably not. Very excited because this time of the year we get an opportunity to catch up on a pretty regular basis talking to Rocco Miller. You can follow his work at the bracketeer.org. You can also follow his work on the Field of 68. He is all over the country. He goes and travels almost as much as anybody that I know of in this industry, trying to go put eyeballs on as many teams as he can. And Rocco Miller joins us now on Three Man Front. Happy New Year, Rocco. Hope you're well.
Happy New Year to you guys. I appreciate the introduction. Great to be on with you. And can you believe it? We're less than 7 weeks till Selection Sunday. We got a lot to catch up on.
Oh, it's just crazy. Now, before we dive deep into the numbers, I just want to get your opinion. I mean, you follow this every single moment of the day, and you travel the country, and you talk to a lot of people in the industry. Just your thoughts, 30,000-foot view on Charles Bediako and him being allowed currently to play for Alabama.
Well, yeah, it's a loaded question for a lot of reasons, but to give you the quick answer, I think it's a controversial case for deeper reasons than the majority of the public understand.
Right.
And it's because of the fact that with Bediako, he had played in college for 2 years, and what we have in basketball is what's called the early draft entry deadline, where he, at that moment in time, after 2 years at Alabama, forego his eligibility to enter the NBA draft process. The difference between that and what the other guys that came from the G League did, they never went through that process where they basically made the announcement, filed their paperwork to the NCAA, and said they're foregoing the rest of their eligibility. From that point forward, he should no longer be allowed to be eligible. So the bottom line is this. Obviously, he's allowed to play through the restraining order. Currently, we have to let it play out long term. But if for any reason Bediako is allowed to stay on the roster for the rest of the season, and it forever alters the early draft deadline that we've all come to know, and it's really the truce. It's the true truce between NCAA basketball and the NBA. If those lines start getting blurred, NIL agents, regular basketball agents are going to take full advantage of that, and there will be no way to tell a kid when he has to decide when he's going to declare for the draft, which also would mean in the middle of the season you could have college players signed right into NBA rosters. So the long-reaching consequences of this getting overturned would basically render any of the old NCAA forego your eligibility rules useless. And so that's why this is such a substantial case. And by no way is it anything similar to what we saw with Najee at Baylor or over here Darwin at Santa Clara and the kid for Louisville. Those are much different cases because the NBA and NCAA integrity is still intact with those.
Rocco, how do you believe that the Bediako case, specifically at Alabama, could impact the committee and how they view Alabama, not as whether they'd be in or out? Does that affect seeding? Do you think they throw it out and they say, forget about Bediako, we're just looking at the team that we have? How do they view it?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting because the NCAA as a whole is looking at this big picture for the reasons I just stated. It's a much far-reaching consequences than one March Madness tournament. The selection committee is built of athletic directors and commissioners, and one of those athletic directors is Greg Byrne at Alabama, who is serving, I think, his 4th year on the committee. So I would have to assume it's going to be they'll be treated fairly. I don't think there's going to be anything extra, to dock them a seed or anything for using him. And the fact that they've played one game and they've lost that game at home, they actually hurt themselves on the court in the game that they've used him so far, although he did play pretty well. So we'll monitor that, but I really don't think it's going to mean a whole lot for this year's NCAA tournament.
All right, Rocco, let's talk about the Southeastern Conference. Last time you were on this program, we were talking about the SEC getting 14 of 16 teams in the NCAA basketball tournament, a record year for the conference. This year, don't think we're going to get the 14 out of the 16, but just your early assessment of where this league is and the depth of the conference when it comes to March Madness.
Yeah, it just lost the top-heavy element, right? Auburn came down to earth with the coaching change late. Obviously, they've picked it up here in the last week and a half, and they project as a tournament team, but they're not going to be a one seed like they were a year ago. If you remember Florida last year, at this time last year, they hadn't really hit their home run yet. So that opportunity came because there was already a good team like Auburn to go beat in the jungle. Florida was the first team to do that last year, and really they were off to the races from there on out, obviously cutting down the nets in April. And then you had, other elite teams like Alabama, Arkansas ended up squeaking in. Tennessee had a heck of a year. And those teams have all just taken a little bit of a step backwards, except for maybe Arkansas, who's taken a step forwards. And that's opened the door for teams like Vanderbilt, who are unbelievable in the non-conference. And I think they still are a threat in the SEC to win it, although it's 4-3 with 3 losses up until their last game. And Texas A&M, who didn't have the hardest SEC schedule due to last year's results, but they're taking full advantage of that, and they're a surprise 6-1 in first place in the league. So it's really opened the door for some other teams to emerge. I do think the depth is still pretty darn good. I mean, the SEC right now, top to bottom, is still ranked on KenPom as the toughest league. The Big Ten and the Big 12 are right on their necks, but I think all 3 of them are fairly even. And I do think you're going to see probably around 9 bids at least from the league, which in any other year besides last year is a pretty darn good year. I'll just tell you right now, Florida, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vandy, Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and then probably Texas or Missouri would be a 10th team right this minute.
Rocco, is there that dominant team? Because I look at, you just mentioned the Big Ten and the Big 12. I look at Michigan, I look at Arizona, respectively. They look like the cream of the crop, the elite teams in college basketball this season. But is it just those two? Is it night and day between those and everybody else? Or do you see more parity maybe entering the picture once tournament play begins?
Yeah, I think right now there's 5 that just have unbelievable credentials, and it's going to finally start getting shook up tonight because Nebraska and Michigan are playing each other. Nebraska is off to a wild, undefeated start. They've had some close calls, but they've pulled out every win so far. They've got to go to Michigan. So if Nebraska wins that game, I think they'll have everybody's respect, and they'll be a 1 seed in my next bracket. But we will – I think part of the issue so far has been – the super conferences that you mentioned, Big 10, Big 12, SEC, and the ACC is so much more improved. That's the big story. They're looking at anywhere from 7 to 10 bids this year, which is drastically different than the 4, the 5, and the 5 of the last 3 tournaments. It's the Big East that's taken a big step back, but UConn is still one of the elite teams in the country. I think the interesting thing is, for better or for worse, the stronger programs at the top are stronger than ever, and I think a lot of that has to just do with the commitment to resources basketball, the money spent. And so places like Duke, Michigan, Arizona, Michigan State, Illinois, and the list goes on at the top there, they have guys that are like 8th, 9th, 10th in the rotation that would be star players at maybe the number 20 team or the number 30 team. And they're just so loaded. They can handle injuries. They can handle different game plans, slow pace, fast pace, big, small lineups, all those things they are prepared for. So I think at the top of that list, it's Arizona, Duke, and probably Michigan. But again, I think UConn belongs in that list. I think there's another crop right below that that's got a big time potential, and Vanderbilt's part of that. I feel like Vanderbilt plays a lot like Gonzaga. They've got to get over the hump in some of those big name matchups. They'll play Kentucky later tonight. I'm excited to see how that goes, but I really love the brand and the offensive system that they're running at Vandy.
Just outstanding stuff, and you can always go and follow his work at the Bracketeer bracketeer.org, and also you can watch him, the Field of 68. He's a frequent contributor to that as well.
It's officially basketball season now that Rocco's been
Absolutely.
on our show.
Listen, Rocco, as you know, being in the Deep South, we got to put the footballs up, the college football playoff, and then all of a sudden it's like a full tilt, full turn to the college basketball season. Once again, the SEC, Alabama, and Auburn is in store for a good, hopefully, postseason run. As always, Rocco, we appreciate it. We look forward to catching up with you throughout the next 7 weeks as we get ready for Selection Sunday. Best to you out west, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Rocco.
Yeah, appreciate it, fellas. Thank you anytime.
Thank you so much. That is Rocco Miller, the Bracketeer, bracketeer.org, one of the best bracketologists you're going to find anywhere, and he's ours. Right here on Three Man Front.
Rocco and all of our guests join us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham's your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Coming up at the top of the hour, Demetri Ravanos will join the program from SEC Unfiltered, also awful announcing. That's all straight ahead on Three Man Front. It's 12:50. Welcome back. We're live at Social Taco. Be here until 2 o'clock. Come on by and see us. We'll be back here next Tuesday every Tuesday from 10 until 2. And a reminder, a week from Friday, we will be live at Crafts 280 in conjunction with the Birmingham Stallions. Hopefully you'll get an opportunity to come see us out there at Crafts on 280. We'll have more information early part of next week of some giveaways and some other things that will be going on in conjunction with the Stallions. You know, when it comes to protecting your home or your business, you need a roofing team that truly abides by quality, and that's Abide Roofing. You've heard me talk about Abide Roofing for months, and the reason I feel so strongly about them is because they did an outstanding job. I was impressed with the whole team from start to finish, from the first phone call to Travis Lloyd and his outstanding team, over 25 years of experience in the roofing industry. Called them, got on my roof, and they told me the bad news, which is I had to have a whole full roof replacement, but that's okay because they're the insurance claim masters. They dealt with my insurance company who was giving me a hard time in regards to my claim, but Travis Lloyd and his team, they worked with them, and Abide Roofing, they bring the real expertise not only with the insurance companies, but their craftsmanship, the workmanship on top of my roof, and communication was outstanding through the whole thing. The warranties, the no-cost consultations and estimates before pulling the trigger and making everything happen. So they can help you just like they helped me. I cannot endorse something any more than I can Abide Roofing because those guys are just outstanding, and they're ready to serve you today at 205-577-7338. That's 205-577-7338. Or simply go to abideroof.com.
We just had Rocco Miller, our resident bracketeer, joining us, talking SEC and what the NCAA tournament could look like come 7 weeks from right now. Tonight we do have SEC basketball. Number 15, Arkansas takes it on the road to Norman. 6 o'clock tip there on ESPN as Arkansas got a nice win at home over LSU, a team they should have beaten, but an Arkansas team that John Calipari is very fired up about. Meanwhile, for Porter Moser, it's been a tough start, and you felt like he was on really shaky ground entering this season. He could help himself tonight, but he's going to need more wins. Doesn't look good. Missouri takes on Alabama, meanwhile. 7 o'clock, that tip time, moving the start time last night. You get that at Coleman Coliseum. Alabama around a 10.5-point favorite as they take on a Missouri team who has been much better at home as opposed to on the road. And Rocco says that right now he's got Missouri just on the outside looking in.
Yeah, he said that the SEC could have close to 10 teams in the NCAA basketball tournament. That's pretty impressive. Now, it's not the 14 that we had last year. Matter of fact, the very latest, and this is a model of taking different bracketology, not only Rocco Miller, but Joe Lenardi and Jerry Palm, kind of taking those and kind of
a hybrid.
Putting them together. You've got Florida and Vanderbilt as a 4 seed. Those would be the highest teams from the SEC in the NCAA tournament. Arkansas and Bama would be on the 5 line. Tennessee is 6. Kentucky and Auburn is 7. I mean, when you said that Kentucky and Auburn is a 7, you're like going, that's pretty deep. Would you like to be on the 7 line playing them in the first round of the NCAA tournament?
No.
Coming in on the 8 line is Texas A&M and Georgia. Buckyball is someone that nobody wants to play in the postseason. The last team in of all of those projections that I was just telling you about is Texas. Missouri is going to be one of those teams on the outside looking in, as you just mentioned. So very strong, healthy league. It might not be the strongest on the I guess the top side of it that we've seen in years past, but it is deep.
And tonight you get another one. 8 o'clock tip on ESPN. Vanderbilt hosting that Kentucky team. Vanderbilt around a touchdown favorite. Diego Pavia is expected to play.
That's what I was about to ask. Has he got any more eligibility left? Him and his 5'7" self. Is he taller than Damian? Because based on his measurements,
I do know he's shorter than Kyler Murray.
I think Diego, just because of the hair, is a little bit
taller than Damian?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
If Damian just went to the barber, then Diego's just a hair taller.
All right, Dimitri Ravanos.
He has no hair.
No, none. He joins us next on Three Man Front.